I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity, CSI, and all the beloved faculty members. My seminar, which is going to be about professional industrial resume. So I want to introduce and tell a bit about myself. I did my master's from University of Texas at Dallas, wherein I focused in computer science with a major in natural language processing, in which my master's thesis was in. I'm currently working with Amazon AWS as a software engineer. So this seminar is basically something that I would want 4 years ago, that I would want to know 4 years ago, like a younger version of myself. So I hope this seminar is helpful and useful for everyone who's attending it. So let's begin. So I've basically divided the topics into three sections, and I want to cover each of these sections in as much detail as possible. Let's start with the resume. So these are some basic facts about resume that I'm sure many people have told you already, and they're going to continue telling. It's to keep the resume as simple and clean as possible. So this is an important fact. You have to keep your resume a one-page resume. I am not sure that it's a standard, but let me tell you why it is going to be really helpful. You are presenting a three-page resume to a person who does not really have the time to go through each of those 3 pages. So if you consolidate everything that you have in one single page, it's going to be easier for them to understand and see what you've done in your projects and all the different sections. So I have a sample resume that I would definitely want to go through with you all, which I think is going to be really helpful. So the other thing is keep the relevant content. The relevant content, by that I mean, what I mean is you need to know what kind of job you're applying for. You need to make sure that the resume is relevant to that particular job ID. And this is something that's I have gone through. For every different role that you're going to apply, you need to have different types of resumes and different versions of resumes. And all of these versions are definitely always a work in progress. You should never be content with what you've developed in your resume and what you've written. And always, always, always proofread your resumes before you send it out to people. And not just by yourself, you have to give it to your teachers, to your friends, to your family members, whoever. Everyone has to have multiple people go through the resume because there can be a lot of small details and things that you can miss out. So the following points that I want to make are not really something that everyone is going to relate to, and that is because in a situation where you're going to go through a placement cell, or in a situation where the company comes to you, you do not have to go through an applicant tracking system. So an ATS is a technology that companies use when they're sorting out resumes and when they're sorting out applications. Um, a lot of companies get many applications, as you can imagine, and they do not have the manpower, nor do they want to have the manpower to actually go through each of these resumes. So they use natural language processing and semantic similarity and bunch of other technologies to sort these out. So in a situation like this, if you have a resume that is, let's say, a double-sided resume, or it has like it has, well, normal bullet points are fine, but any sort of design, it will come across as ASCII characters and question marks and boxes. So the ATS system will not be able to go through that resume. And if a sentence is like, you have two separate sections and a sentence ends here and the other section starts here, it's going to think that it's one single sentence. So that's not going to make any sense. So for an ATS system, you need to keep it as simple as possible, and you need to understand that there are keyword matching involved. So if you go on the internet and look for how to read ATS system, there are going to be multiple theories. And most of these theories are going to say, look at the resume, look at the application that you're sending out, and look at the job profile. Just make sure that you have a few words from the job profile present in your resume. Because if it's going to do a semantic match or a semantic similarity or a word match, it's going to use those words and it's going to look for similar words. So that is one way. And So that's just the basic aspects of resume writing. So I want to go through some of the technological aspects that you should cover. So let me start with saying, do not lie on your resume, and make sure you know everything you've written on that resume. It's understandable that you don't remember off the top of your head a project you did in your second year, and assuming you're in your final year. It is understandable, but make sure that you go through your resume and you know that, these are the technologies that I used even at that point, and like, even though it is not relevant right now, you should really just go through and refresh your memory, and think about all the questions a person would answer just by reading those two sentences. That brings to my next point. You don't have to write more than 2 to 3 sentences about a project. You should be able to cover everything about that project. Unless you've worked for 10 years, I don't think that project should require a description more than that. Unless you've done like multiple parts of the project, then yes, definitely put everything that you think is relevant about that project in those bullet points. But just make it as concise and simple and understandable for a person reading it. So this is a resume of a friend of mine, and it's going to be a bit different for you people since you do not have work experience. So above this is where, like, just above the education is where the person's name and their contact details are going to be. So in that contact details, given that we are engineers, we should have certain other social media accounts that we should present, like for instance, LinkedIn and GitHub. So those are the two most important talking points that I'm going to get at, but make sure that you have a LinkedIn and a GitHub account, and make sure you present those in your resume. Because how is a company going to see whatever you're saying, if it is true or not, what you're saying, if it is relevant or not? Like, it's a sort of way of, you presenting a proof to these recruiters. Okay, so in terms of how to write your project details, so this person, he has a few years of work experience. So his number of projects is actually a little smaller. So even though you see that these are two different pages, I just couldn't fit them in one page. So they are a single page resume, just the font is really small and tiny. You don't need a big font. When you print it out on paper, even a 12-point font is extremely legible. So don't worry about that. Just try to fit everything in a single page. So in terms of project, this is something that a lot of people, even our professors and teachers, would agree on. You should, like, whatever you're developing should have an impact. Like, it should, you should have made something different. You should have have had a positive impact. Like, did your project, did it improve an efficiency? Did it improve an algorithm's efficiency? Did it decrease the latency? There are P99 scores. So there are multiple ways where what you can use to measure the impact of a project. Like, for instance, I did X project and it increased my company's profits by X percentage. That's just an example. So even if your project is really small, it will definitely have an impact. And compare it to other projects that are already existing. So that way you would probably get a better understanding of how to measure all of these improvement percentages. So when you're writing about your academic projects, use the STAR method. So the STAR method is basically a situation, task, action, and result. This way you can consolidate all your points in as small, smaller sentences, in understandable sentences. And always make use of numbers, because I'm pretty sure that the first thing that captured your attention is the numbers on these projects. Because, if someone reduced the prediction rate by 55%, you want to know what did they do in that project exactly? How did they manage to reduce it by 55%? Because 55% is technically a big number, right? So things like that. You want to grab the person's attention when they're reading your resume. So this is not just for ATS systems. This is for a person reading a resume as well. Because at the end, you're applying for a job online. An ATS system picks your profile. A person is going to read the resume at the end of the day. So you want to make sure that you can either have two different versions. when a person is reading the resume, you definitely have a little more flexibility in terms of your creative content. Like you can have different colors and fonts and things like that when a person is reading it. Whereas an online application technically do not include those, because I have read a lot of experiences and definitely did a lot of mistakes in those lines, for sure. Okay, so yeah, so that brings to my next point, which is yeah, the star method. So after that, you guys are engineers and developers, so you're obviously performing actions. So try to start a project with a verb like develop, performed, implemented, etc. There are a lot of synonyms on the internet that you should definitely Google. And every role is really different, so make sure that you cater your resume to the role. And it's really, even it's a bad thing, well, it's not really a bad thing, but getting picked from an ATS system, and if a person looks at it and rejects it, that definitely is it's going to be harmful more than anything. So yeah, you have to definitely keep an eye for both of these things. So another option is to highlight certain words. This person did not actually do that, but you could obviously like highlight all the interesting things. 55% can be highlighted. Yeah. Okay. So that brings me to my next point, which is technical skills. So try to divide your technical skills in different subsections, because it gets easier. So if a, in an interview, if a person is looking at a jumbled up collection of everything together, like in a situation where Python, Spark, R, C++, SAS, Tableau, Strata, everything is together in a single line, I don't think they're gonna even like give more than a second or attention towards that. But you want them to. Those are your biggest talents. You did 4 years of engineering, and all the extra work that you put in, it is for these technical skills and these knowledges, this knowledge that you have adapted. So you definitely want the people to question more about these technical skills. So do not go by the format exactly, because a person without experience has to show their technical skills before anything else. So technical skills has to go right under your name or your education. And then, so that format is the format or the order of how you add things, that is really up to you. I do not want to comment on that. In terms of academic projects, you want major section of your resume to focus only on these academic projects. So 4 to 5 academic projects is a really good idea, and final, including final year project, is definitely a must. And it has to always be in recent to past, so in a chronological order of time. Yeah, so after that, publication. So everything that you want someone that makes you stand out, basically, like a publication. Not a lot of people have publications, not a lot of people have research papers. So you want all of those things to be definitely there, and people want, you would want people to notice such a thing. So make sure that you add those, and make sure you have all the links and everything. So let's get back to the GitHub part of the project, of the presentation. I hope everyone here knows what GitHub is. Um, in during project presentation, well, during different undergrad projects and even grad school projects, we did this, where you develop a project, and then you develop a project final, and then you project final, for sure final, pakka final. So you don't want that. Sharing those files is it's a big hassle, because you would probably think, oh wait, this part of project did work in one of those sections, huh? Which section? I don't know. So that's why GitHub comes in. GitHub basically is a website, and it hosts software engineering projects, and it uses version control for doing so. And it's a good place to store all the history of your project. And especially in a situation when you're working with multiple people, everyone can have a different branch. So there are different branches, and it all consolidates into a main branch. and the main branch has only the working part of your code. So whatever new additions that you're adding has to be compatible with the working section of the code. So it's going to be an addition. So the Git technology is used across all companies, because I don't think sharing a final zip file is going to do in most of the companies. It's going to be a really big headache. So go to these websites to check out more about Git. There are basic Git commands. You can pull source code from GitHub, and you can make your own branch, and you can make changes, and you can push out those changes once the owner of the code has approved. So there are basic commands that I don't think now would rather be a good time to go through, but definitely check these out. So at the end of this seminar, if someone asks you what is the biggest or the most important thing you learned from this seminar, it has to be two things. It has to be, I learned what is the biggest or the most or the something that's used by every developer is Googling stuff. That is the most important tool, or that is the most important thing that you should learn. I know how to Google. And the second thing is you have to know how to learn new things, because especially in software engineering and software development, there are new technologies and new concepts that are developed pretty much every day. And as we grow up, it kind of becomes difficult for us to pick up new things. So these are the two things that you should definitely know. Google all your doubts. Stack Overflow is God. And the second thing is learn how to learn new things. That is me digressing a little bit. Let's get back to topic. In terms of GitHub, it's a very important tool. So the other important thing that why I am asking you guys to look at GitHub is because I want you to put all your projects in GitHub. Now, if you're presenting a resume to an engineer or to anyone, they're going to ask for proof. Now you can't even if, let's say, you did host each of your project on the internet, like you have a web page for every project, it's going to be difficult for you to send them links of those. So GitHub is a one-stop place for all of these links, where they can obviously look at the quality of code you can write. They can look at, like, it's obviously, like, the software engineering is a process, and you're always developing, and you're improving your skills. So it's fine if your project skills right now are not that great. 2 years from now it's going to be much better. 2 years from then it's going to be much better than that. So it's going to be a process, and you also would want to see that process go through. So GitHub is a good place to start. Post all your projects there to begin with, and for your final year projects, you guys have to use GitHub. Do not do the final.zip file. Just saying, it's really helpful. Okay, so and GitHub, do not steal code, because for every project you will find someone or the other has uploaded their projects and it's going to be similar, but a recruiter will know. And I'm not sure if GitHub is actually using the technology, but at some point they might add to see how similar the code lines are. So do not steal code. But this again brings to my next point. If you want to learn something new, you should do that by trying to replicate someone, by replicate, not copy. Okay, so the next thing is Linux commands. Now, if you guys are wondering how big companies or anyone actually host stuff, it's going to be on Linux servers, and you need to know basic Linux commands for these and those commands are taught in college, and it can actually slip your mind. So definitely make sure that you know all of the Linux basics, at least to move around in a directory or to copy a file and download it on your local computer. um, like uh, it's good to have a set of notes for things that you should remember, and Linux commands are definitely one of those. It will give you an edge because these are things that you can definitely Google, but you should know what to Google, right? If someone just says, go copy this file from XXX server, you should know how to connect to that server. You should know how to look up that file. You should know how to copy that file. You should know how to download that file. So once you know, once you do it once or twice, I think you will pick up. So just an FYI, knowing Linux commands is going to be great and it's going to be really helpful. Okay, so you will be given this presentation. So you will have a list of all these links and all these technologies. But yeah, definitely look up these things. So there are a lot of free tools available on the internet, as you know already. And these are some of those. So writing a web scraper is a very good project. So I have a list of projects that I'm going to talk about, but that is something that's extremely useful. And yeah, look these up. And there are free student trials. And given that you guys are students right now, you have to make use of these. So especially if I might miss a few of these, I might miss a few of the topics, or I might miss a few of the links, but look up all the important things with student discounts for sure. So okay, so I want to start with saying that we are in really unprecedented times, and technically if someone comes and asks me how do I do a master's degree and I'm still in undergrad, I would have said first get an internship. So I want to say that it's a difficult time, I understand, but do try. Um, and here are some ideas and projects that you should definitely try sitting at home. It is not going to cost you anything, and it is definitely going to be a learning experience. So for internships, and I'm going to talk about how to network and how to talk to people and ask for internships. But yeah, the biggest source and the best source are going to be your college seniors. And you have to use places like LinkedIn to do so. Everyone is on LinkedIn, and when you're talking in a professional setting, when you want a referral, you definitely want to talk to them via a professional place, which is LinkedIn. Okay, so let's say you want to develop a project, you have a few less projects, or the simplest thing that I would say is develop a website for someone. It does not even have to be a like, you don't have to add a payment page or things like that. Just an online presence for any relative's business, or just for yourself also. So there is something called as GitHub pages, which I think is free, where you can host your websites. You will have to learn how to upload, and how to do web development, but add all of those to your project section in your resume. It is definitely going to give an edge. Not a lot of people can say that they can develop a project, or I'm sorry, they can develop a website and host that website, because developing a website and running it on localhost in my computer is one thing, hosting it is something else. So start with GitHub pages. There are other hosting places as well, but start from here. And the other example is working for a non-profit organization. So especially people who are doing masters, the colleges want to see a person who has a lot to contribute to the world, and who has already started to do their part. And in such a situation, you definitely want to be helpful to others. So currently, again, in a situation where it is still, we're in lockdown and we're at home, helping non-profit organizations is going to help them a lot, given, and you're going to help other people as well, indirectly or directly. And Connect For is an example of a place where you can find technology based internships. And there are a lot of other places as well. This was just the one off the top of my head. Definitely look up. So for So this is for another project idea. So before I do that, for data science roles, or for a resume that is about data science, you need to have projects such as this one that I'm going to talk about, which includes different aspects of it. Data science is basically, it's a very broad term. It's going to include how do you collect data, how do you clean data, how do you make the data useful. 80% of data science is cleaning data. If you didn't know, it's only the 20% when you're actually going to program, develop, and add, make algorithms, use algorithms, improve efficiency, and things like that. So the biggest, if I may say, flex that you can do on your resume is show that you can collect data and clean it. And anyone can get a pre-processed data from a lot of resources, but if you can get the data, collect it by yourself and make it useful, that is something else altogether. So it is not something that I want you to go and do right away. I'm asking you to keep it in mind that you want to do it at some point. So start with learning how to, get how to just clean data, and then look up how to get data. So just break it up into small parts. But this is a whole project that I believe will really look good on a resume. And if I were a recruiter, I would definitely call this person back. So you guys would have seen a lot of COVID data and a lot of like analysis done on the internet regarding this data. Like in US, for example, every state has to present the number of tests conducted, the number of tests positive, and the number of tests negative, and that ratio. They also have to do like a breakdown on counties. So we have wards in India, right? So they have counties here. It's the same concept. So you want they have all of those breakdowns. So let's say you develop a scrapper. Now, scrapper, that is how you get data and raw data from a lot of internet resources. So look up scrapper, look up how to use scrapper. Continuing on this, so you have to get the data from all of these websites. You can use Excel to process, and it's fine if you use Excel. A lot of companies still use Excel. You do not have to use fancy R processing tool and other processing tools and technologies. Excel is just a fine example. It's just a fine place to start. So process the data, and you can use a lot of free tools such as Tableau to make beautiful graphs out of it, and you can get a lot of insights. So this is just a data analyst. This is what a data analyst would do. They would get the data and analyze it and present it beautifully, if I might say. But a data scientist would try to get insights, and would try to predict things, would try to analyze the data, and gather some certain conclusions, or try to like basically, yeah. So that is another example of how to of what you can do in current situation. And this is a very there is actually a website which tracks the number of COVID related websites there are. So it is something that everyone's doing, and if you're starting out on data science and if you want project ideas, you should definitely start from here. Okay, so the next important thing is learn how to use APIs. Every API has um, like tools, and there are a lot of internet websites that you can go through on how to use APIs. But a simple example of getting yourself familiarized, and this is how I did it. I just used the Twitter API to obtain data on a hashtag, and I did a simple sentiment analysis on that hashtag. So this way, this was pretty much the starting point for me to understand what an API is, and how to process that data. And um, it it definitely, you can actually specify which hashtag you want, and that way there can be a lot of varieties. You do not have to use a project that someone else has used. So it's going to be a unique thing. And this is something that I wanted to bring up, which is India has a lot of languages, and use the diversity and show that in your project, because a person reading it would be really impressed. There are a lot of Hindi tweets, and I just went and googled how to get Hindi tweets, and the first answer was, can't you write a small scrapper to get the Hindi tweets? So be the person who writes that scrapper and put it on internet. Put it on GitHub. Let other people use your scrapper when they're looking for project ideas. Do something unique. So basically, yeah, that's the basic gist of a few of the project ideas. You can definitely Google how to Google basic, starting ideas for data science projects, and how to improve your data science resume. So, a software engineering resume will have all software development projects, and the data science has to have something that is a bit different than a software engineering resume. Everything related to data, when you're collecting data and analyzing it, when you're using machine learning algorithms, all of those sort of go into your data science resume. If you do not have enough software engineering resumes, you can grab a few of those and put them here. It obviously works vice versa as well, but make sure you showcase different aspects. So if you have a data science project, focus on the technologies that you used when you present it as a software engineering project. Like you used Python development, and you used three different algorithms, and you did a comparative analysis on the algorithms, and one algorithm had a 50% efficiency over the other, and things like that. So make sure you uh, actually yeah, make sure you do that, and have different resumes for each and every project that you have, um, for each and every role you're applying. Okay, so participate in hackathons. So this sort of gives a two-part advantage, really. It's a very good networking opportunity. Now, given coronavirus situation, you can't really do a networking, because a lot of networking, because everything is going to be online. But we are going to get out of this situation, and there are going to be physical hackathons. So attend those hackathons. You will get to meet a lot of people with a lot of different background, and I follow this software developer on I basically hear her podcast, and she picked up an entire new programming language in a hackathon in those 24 hours, and she ended up really liking it, and now she has a job where that is her major role. So there are a lot of interesting stories and interesting people that you will get to meet during a hackathon. So definitely participate in those. And it is a good programming practice, and you will develop a project at the end of 24 hours, which is not something that you get to say every day. So it's going to be a lot of concentration, and it is going to take a lot of energy to do it, but it again shows that you can concentrate and work for those 24 hours. And it's not really 24 hours always. It's a There are different formats of it, but yeah, look up different hackathons that are happening online. Eventbrite is a place where you can find a lot of virtual hackathons, and I think there is Microsoft India. They also organize hackathons and virtual competitions. So and so another point is, a lot of recruiters actually get people directly from websites like LeetCode. So LeetCode gives out points for every competition you've won, and it's basically a point system. Like the more number of competitions you crack, the more points you get. And they post jobs, and recruiters can directly email you via LeetCode, given you have a good point. So who knows, your next job is waiting on lead code. So definitely check it out. It's even in an interview point of view, right? If someone does call you for an interview, they are going to ask about every little detail in your resume, and they might randomly pop in right a piece of code in Java or do multi-threading or things like that. So you have to have these things off the top of your head, and programming practice is going to be number one for that. And this is so these websites, they are global, so you would definitely be competing against the best of the best in the world. Do not feel bad. Most of these people have like tens of years of experience, and it's absolutely fine if you do not um, if you do not get a good score or you're not able to crack it in 15 minutes or something. That is the, I think, fastest time limit that people usually crack these interviews. I still take like 45-15 minutes, and it's absolutely fine. So keep participating, and it's going to be really helpful. So for data science, there is a website called as Kaggle. They host a lot of competitions, and they have a lot of open competitions. So these, the Lead Code and Kaggle, these are, they host competitions, and they are not really a hackathon site, but it's a programming practice for sure. And if you have a good Lead Code score, or if you have a good Kaggle score, include your Kaggle links on your resume as well. So what any recruiter is looking is that you have an edge over other people they are interviewing. Why should they give you a job? So if a person who does not have a Kaggle account versus a person who has a Kaggle account and has like decent enough points, I'm not saying you have to be great. Even if you have a decent enough set of points in Kaggle for a data science related job, they're obviously going to choose you. It's as simple as that. So and see, these are things that are going to give an edge to you now because you do not have work experience. So you have to make sure you because the ground is never really equal for everyone. Someone or the other is going to have an edge, and for most people it's going to be work experience, because that's how you learn most of the things. But until you get the work experience, until someone gives you a job, you need to make sure that you do your part. So these are some of those skills. And yeah, I think I should probably mention, if you win one of those competitions, you do definitely get a lot of cash prize, like a lot of cash prize. So include those projects. So yeah, another point, Kaggle has projects, right? You can definitely include those projects. The first project, I think Titanic dataset is what I started with. That is what everyone probably would start with. It's a very simple data set, and you can find a lot of analysis done on it on Kaggle itself. You can try to replicate someone else's work and then add some of yours, so that becomes an entire project in itself. So yeah, so that's one of the points that I would want to include. Okay, so the next section is going to be about LinkedIn. Is networking important? Yes, it is important. Even if the companies are coming to you right now, few years down the line, you would want to switch your job, and you would want to know how to find your next job. The other job is not going to come walking to you. Like out of this college, life is going to be, I mean, you have to find your own path, right? So these are some things that you should do. It's not going to harm anyone if you start doing them right away. It's not going to harm you if you have a LinkedIn presence and if people know about your existence on LinkedIn. So the first and foremost point, add a professional photo on your LinkedIn. I mean, there is no definition of what a professional photo is, but just a selfie is not a good idea. According to me, I think. So LinkedIn is going to be useful in three ways. It's going to help you find a job or an internship. It's going to help you find the people who would refer you for these roles, and it is going to help other people, such as recruiters, find you. So every company has a LinkedIn presence, and they obviously post every role that they have on their website and on LinkedIn. Most of the companies do it in both the places. So you can get an information about these roles, and you can connect to recruiters. So every recruiter will allow pretty much every connection that they send that they receive. So connect to recruiters. Even if you think right now they do not have a role that applies to you, connect to them, because down the lane you opened LinkedIn one day and you find a role. that you are interested in, it's going to change your life. It's going to make a lot of difference. If you want to start scratch after 2 years from now, it's going to be a lot difficult. Just start right away. Don't You do not have to pick up for these 2 years that you could have had the edge over others. So every company has a referral system. And basically, a referral system is you do not have to go through the ATS process that I started my presentation with. There is not going to be a resume sorting system that would look at your resume. A recruiter would directly look at your resume if like there is a referral system. So this sort of gives an edge, because most of the people, their resumes could get rejected in the ATS system itself. So so a referral is a sort of short way of getting someone to notice you in a job role that you're interested. So this is an example. So a lot of people would prefer different types of introductions, but connect to a person who you have some sort of commonality with. See if they are from your same state, from same country. Well, not country, but like same area, same town, same college, something that is common. And tell them that we have something common, and we are from the same college, and I'm interested in working in your company. This is my resume. So do not make them look at your, I mean, it's always a good idea. They might actually go and look at your profile, but don't make it a thing that they have to do. Present them with your resume right away, so that they do not have to do the work. They know what they're looking at. And then present the role itself. So do not say that I am interested in a software engineering role. Can you refer me to one? Give them the link itself. It's not going to take 2 seconds of your work, and it's going to save them the frustration. They might not even reply if you don't not give them the important details. So if they reply to your message, if they say referred, done, it's okay. Yeah, that's a good thing. If they do not, find someone else. It's There are multiple people, and like don't bother them or bother the same person. And also try to reach out to like a person who is of your level or a level higher, someone who has a year of experience. They know what you went through. They went through the same thing. They are more likely to help you out than, let's say, the VP of the company. He would not even look at your message. He might not even accept your connection. So this is that is a thing that usually happens. I know a person who just tweeted to the VP of YouTube, and he got a job interview out of that. So that is also a possibility, but that does not happen very often. Um, you're welcome to try it, I think. um, yeah, that sort of brings towards the master's section. Everything that I mentioned until now, I know it's an information overload, and it's not something that you have to do. It's something that's very much optional. But for a person who is doing masters, think about it. You are competing with people, assuming, let's say, you have to come to US or you have to go to Australia. All the colleges in their undergrad, they are required to have internships, and most of the people have at least 2 internships, which is 6 months of working in companies under them before they start a master's project, before they start applying for masters. So you want to have an edge over these people as well. It's the world you're competing against. So it's people from different countries who have different educational systems. It's people with work experience, because I did not do. I graduated from undergrad and I directly did my master's, but I was with people who had 5 years of professional working experience, and then they decided to do the master's. So the playing ground is never equal. You just have to set and do something that makes you unique. So all of these things would definitely give you an edge. And even if it doesn't, it's going to be a learning experience. At the end of the day, it will make you a better programmer. It will make you a better developer, for sure. So why should you practice programming? For especially people who want to do their masters, is because pretty much when you start your first semester of masters, you will start looking for a summer internship. I did not know this. I went to college nicely, enjoying in September, and someone said, "Oh, I got an internship already. What are you doing with life?" That was not a good situation to be in, especially since I did not know that I was supposed to apply and supposed to know all these things before I even started my education. That is what I thought masters was going to be. It was going to be a situation. Well, it definitely was. I did get to learn a lot, but I was supposed to know a lot more things, which well, given that I did a focus in NLP and in areas of research, people with work experience knew a lot more to start with. So I had to do the catch up. So if you do that from now itself, you wouldn't face a struggle, especially in if you're starting masters in September and in August you're wondering what to do, how to program. So yeah, definitely do that. So for masters, it's going to be a very similar process. You thankfully, for applications at least, there is no ATS system. A person is going to look at your application and your resume. But again, make it short and sweet. You have to show that you are a well-rounded person. You have to show that you know a lot of different things. You're master of different areas. Um, you have to have like a good leadership qualities shown. You have to have impactful projects. You have to show you are good at collaborative work, because there are going to be a lot of projects, or pretty much every project is going to be a group project. So you need to show that all of these things you already know how to do those. So work experience and internships, those are the things that would teach you all these things. But if you don't, you can definitely show group projects as an example. Um, and for leadership roles, join CSI. So that brings me towards the end. There is one last thing that I want to talk about, that is imposter syndrome. Google imposter syndrome, it's very common, especially amongst developers and people in tech. There are some times when you feel that everyone around you knows a lot and you don't. It's normal, and there are a lot of coping ways of overcoming this. So it's a very normal thing, and especially if you're doing masters and competing with people who have years of work experience. So don't worry. It's a normal thing. So Google about it as well. That brings me to the end of my presentation.
So I can see that we have already received a few questions. Um, so ma'am, the first question is, how important is data structures and algorithms in the area of ML and AI? Over to you, ma'am.
Thanks, Sukrishna. That's a very good question. It is the most important thing that you need to know about. You've learned it in college, and it's going to stay with you for a really long time. I still remember Shaivari ma'am's lecture about a lot of those data structures, and I still use those data structures even now. It just happened. It's a weird anecdote, but just a couple of days ago, I was just thinking, and I still have a lot of my notes from undergraduate, which helps me a lot. So it's extremely useful. That's why I said, right, when you're programming, you don't actually consciously think which data structure to use. It's something that builds into your subconscious mind. So and yeah, so that's why it's the more you practice, the easier it's going to be. So practice, practice, practice.
Okay, ma'am. Those were really inspiring words. Moving on to the next question. Is it okay to put skills in which I have very basic knowledge?
Yes, actually, it is okay to put skills that you have very basic knowledge in. But just you could actually differentiate your level of knowledge in about a skill. Like you can differentiate them in terms of familiarity. But yeah, if you do not have a lot of skills to present at the ones, and if someone asks questions, make sure you know how to answer those. They wouldn't start with complicated questions for sure. So even the basic questions, know everything about the basics.
Yes, ma'am. That was absolutely right. Now, moving on to the next question. This is a very interesting question. I guess this is a question which we all have in our mind. Do certificates achieved through websites like Udemy are really beneficial?
So the knowledge is beneficial more than the certificate. You do not have to show certificates. No one is going to ask proof of your knowledge. They are not going to ask a written proof of your knowledge. They are going to question you about those. So even if you do not have a certificate, it's absolutely fine. And where were you planning on showing those certificates anyway? LinkedIn is the only place, and no one really scrolls all the way to the bottom to look at the list of certificates. But if you mention that you have the knowledge and you have worked on a project on, I know Udemy is a very good website, and they definitely have a lot of interesting, interesting classes and courses. So, and if you developed an interesting project as part of this course, add them to your resume, and that's fine. That's all you need.
Thank you, ma'am. So, moving on to the next question. How important is the hobbies and interests section in the resume?
Um, so depends on. Well, if you're applying for masters, I would say I would suggest not to add that section. But I think given that it's going to be your first job and it's going to be your first role, if you have some hobby that is like related to software engineering, let's say you have a YouTube page, or let's say you have an Instagram page where you talk about technology basically, then yes, add it. Otherwise, no.
Okay, ma'am. Moving on to the next question. What was the reason to do masters in computer science? Like, how did you survey yourself to choose the specific field?
So it wasn't. I did my computer engineering degree, and I felt that I wanted to continue in computer science specifically. I wasn't in a position to decide what I wanted exactly. Because if I had chosen a degree such as business analytics, my horizon would have reduced quite a lot, and I wasn't ready to make that decision yet. That's why I decided to do computer science, because it gave me a lot of options. It worked for me. It may not work for you. It was a very like personal decision, I think.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, our next question is, what if we haven't done a single internship in our engineering career, but we have relevant knowledge and skills? Do we still have the chance to get selected?
So yes, absolutely, you do. But it depends on how you market yourself at the end of the day. See, given the current situation, even the number of internships people were getting is going to reduce quite a lot, because the job itself has reduced quite a lot. So it's absolutely fine that you do not have an internship, but make sure you cover up in projects and having a good GPA and all the other areas that I spoke.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next question is, who can I get to review my resume for errors before I send it to the company?
So your friends to begin with, give each other your resume, and you have to understand that it's going to have mistakes, and it's fine to have mistakes. Ask your parents to review it, elder siblings, your professors and teachers. There are a lot of resources for you available when you're still at college, when you're still in college. So make use of those resources.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next question is, how would you compare data science scope and opportunities after graduation in India and USA?
I am not really sure how to answer those. I don't really know a lot about how the data science situation is, or at least the job situation is in India. Um, um, but I'm assuming it's going to be pretty similar because there are a lot of interesting startups and there are a lot of technologies. Well, there is a lot of research, especially in different areas of data science going on in India. So I think it would be pretty similar.
Yes, ma'am. So our next question is it necessary to get certified for self-taught skills or is there any better way?
So depends on certifications again. There are a lot of networking CCNA. I think that was one of the certifications that a lot of my friends did. Well, that was because they were interested in it, in getting certified, I mean. But yeah, if you have the knowledge, don't focus on certification. All they care about is that, you know how to use a technology, you know how to talk about that technology. And yeah, you're good to go.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next question is using an online resume builder a good idea? Can the resume built by these services be read by ATSs? If yes, can you recommend a good resume builder?
Yes, Word. Word is the best place to do, build your resume. It has everything and it's going to be on your laptop, on your computer. You do not. So the problem with these online places is you will have to pay for them for those, and it's not really necessary. You can just find a simple resume template online and use that, or create a template of your own. It doesn't matter. Just keep it simple. Do it yourself.
Thank you, ma'am. That was really helpful. Our next question is it better to put myself as a journalist or a specialist on my resume?
Um, so I would say do a well-rounded resume. Do not specialize in anything so soon, because there are a lot of things that you don't know about yet. There are a lot of technologies that you haven't used yet. I haven't either. So it's unless and until you have a really strong interest, unless let's say you want to pursue a PhD in XXX technologies, then focus on it, yes. But otherwise, do not focus on just one thing. Learn a lot more skills rather than focusing on one. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Those were really helpful words. So our next question what is the difference between resume and CV?
I think you should Google that.
Yes, ma'am. Our next question what work do you do in AWS?
I'm a software engineer at AWS. My team owns a product called Elastic Beanstalk. Um,
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. I guess those are all the questions that we had. I hope all your doubts and queries have been cleared by now.